Okay, welcome everyone. We are here tonight with some amazing ladies that have incredible credentials. I'm here with my co-host Trisha Frigo. Hi, Trisha.
Hi, Cindy. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
And so tonight we're going to be, obviously we're hosting a virtual viewing party with TEDx speakers and a live Q&A. We have our amazing. I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction. I've been a parent at Turtle River Montessori for about 13 years. My 15-year-old who's in high school there went to Turtle River since pre-K 2.5, I would say, right before she turned 3. And then I still have my son Trevor, who is in 6th grade. So I wanted to just give everybody a hello, and I'm going to make a little introduction. I'll let Trisha introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Hi, everybody. My name's Trisha Frigo, and I have 4 kids who 2 have graduated from Turtle River. They started when they were 2, and they graduated through the middle school after 8th grade. And I have 2 that are left. They are all boys. They're all different kind of learners. We've all had a great experience. And I've decided to keep all of them there for various reasons that we can go into in the Q&A. But I've been there since my oldest, who's going to college this year, since he was 2 years old. He's the one who started the whole thing and wasn't sure I was even going to keep him there, but we did. And the rest have stayed, and we'll stay through 8th grade because we just love the community and the education that we found there. So thanks.
And the other beautiful thing I just want to mention is that we've built lifelong friendships as well through Turtle River. I know the families that I've come to know and love. Just there's bonds besides just the classroom. So I just wanted to share that with all the attendees too. Tonight we're going to be talking about parenting, and obviously between the pandemic, education is transforming before our eyes, technology overload, and prepping our children for the future. Things are not easy all the time. So we're excited to have obviously Bubbly Dandia, who is our founder at Turtle River Montessori, and many of you who are here are obviously familiar with Bubbly. She is an incredible woman, founded Turtle River in 1995, inspired by her 2 daughters who were 3 and 8 at the time. She is an incredible woman and also a mentor personally to me and also Trisha. So we're so excited to share her TEDx tonight, and also Aviva. So Dr. Aviva Legat is a TEDx speaker, a Forbes contributor, a college admissions expert, and an author, and she's a mom as well. So we're super excited to have Aviva. She's the founder of Ivy Insight, a boutique college admissions consulting firm and internationally recognized expert. And her book, Get Real and Get In, is an insider's guide targeted to college-bound students, and it's going to publish in August 2021. So we're excited to have Aviva. I met Aviva through TEDx Boca Raton. I'm co-organizer of TEDx Boca Raton, and she was one of our incredible speakers. So we're going to open it up, I think, with the TED Talks, and then we'll have a discussion after. Trisha, did you want to say a few words? Anything before we start?
No, I think we can start, and then I can say a couple things after.
Okay, so we're going to get started with Bubbly's TED Talk. Is traditional education killing innovation?
So in 1997, a Korean airline flight crashed in Guam and killed 225 people. In the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell suggests that it was the cultural conditioning of the crew in the cockpit that was the ultimate cause of this crash. Asian cultures respect and value deference to authority. And it was this exact deference that led the co-pilot to hesitate in communicating the signs of danger to the captain. By the time he spoke up, it was 6 seconds before the impact, and it was too late. Could the freedom to question his superiors have led to a timely solution and averted this crash and saved all these lives? Perhaps, yes. Growing up in India, I remember well this kind of cultural conditioning. Questioning authority was downright dangerous. There was a palpable fear of the teachers at school. We were told what to do, when to do, and how to do everything. And because of this deference, we blindly followed directions without ever thinking for ourselves. At home, the underlying principle was do what you're told and don't ask why. Our parents made all our decisions, what school we would attend, what professions we would choose, who we would marry, and when. My parents had decreed that I should be a doctor. So I pursued the sciences all through high school. One summer, we took a road trip. I had just graduated from high school. And my mother, a very intelligent and an educated woman, had an epiphany that if I became a doctor, I may not be able to fulfill my responsibilities as a wife and a mother. So therefore, the decision was made that I need to switch from the sciences to the humanities. And guess what? I quietly did. It never occurred to me once to interrupt and question my parents about this drastic change in my life plan. I got married at 23 and started my new journey, traveling and discovering different countries and cultures, vastly different from mine. Now, I value my cultural heritage, but as I traveled, I realized how deeply my development was impacted by the messages that I had received growing up. With no autonomy and no opportunity to make any decisions for myself, I was a co-pilot of my own life, so to speak. I vowed to myself that if and when I had daughters, my messaging to them would be very different. Eventually, we had 2 beautiful daughters, 2 Indian American girls whose environment was surely going to shape a different reality for them. And I was excited when it came time to choose a school for them. Excitedly, I started to explore schools in our area. But to my utter disappointment, the most progressive country in the world is using an education system that was exactly the same as mine back home in India. This education model was conceived during the Industrial Revolution. based on standardization and efficiency. Look at how far we have come from that time. The world has changed drastically since then, but the classrooms still look the same. Worst yet, the messaging is still the same. What our children needed then is very different from what our children need today. Needless to say, that I was very disheartened. So I started to explore different education models. One that would empower my girls to have a clear vision of who they were and where they were going. Not that kind of vision. So I decided at 40 to reinvent myself and to become an entrepreneur. And I established a school for them. A school that valued creativity, which is the wellspring of innovation. In the last 24 years, I have learned that every single child comes hardwired to be an innovator. And it is our responsibility as educators to nurture and to stoke that spirit. So here I was. I established this school. And these were the messages I wanted my children to hear, that we celebrate your uniqueness. We celebrate your individuality. We rejoice in your creativity. There are only two kinds of people, you and everyone else. So remember, what you bring to this world is unique. The second was, we value your opinions. We respect you and your abilities to think for yourself. Your thoughts have merit, and feel free to express yourself fearlessly and confidently. And lastly, very important, it's okay to fail. Failure teaches you profound lessons and makes success even sweeter. And if you're not failing, you are not taking enough risks, and you are not really working hard enough. And as it was said, that those who fail miserably achieve greatly. John F. Kennedy said that. So before we go any further, I want to report to you that my two daughters, who I started the school for in Jupiter, Florida, are my living proofs that giving them these empowering messages will take them a long, long way. Here is my younger daughter, who is currently working for Google and had an innovative spirit and still has it. The schooling did not crush it. My second daughter, who was educated in Harvard, decided to take on urban education reform and is currently working in Harlem as a principal of a high school. These are the children who are going to change our world. These are only two of the millions of children who will change the world. So I urge you, I implore you, I challenge you to make sure that our children have the ability to think freely, that all of the kids that we are in our lives need to know that they are all innovators. There is not one child in this world who is not born to be an innovator. So let's encourage them and let's send them our messages of empowerment so that we have a world that's full of these beautiful innovators. Thank you.
That was just incredible, 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 and so much to unpack there. But we're going to segue into Aviva's talk, and just to let everyone know, I'm going to unshare the screen for a moment just to see if there's anyone in the waiting room, and we are good. Okay, and okay, so I will share the screen. I just wanted to say before Aviva's talk that her location for the event was at a different, it was a different location. So the audio, frankly, is not as good as Bubbly's TED Talk, but the content is just so relevant to what's happening in the world right now. And I think we'll have a lot to talk about. So I'll get started with Aviva's.
This look familiar to anyone? The power of smartphones is visceral. It's primal. The power of smartphones made this baby start to pant, crawl, and poo. You and I, just like this baby, that's my son, are not so different. If you find yourself ignoring those around you to check your phone, this talk is for you. If you find yourself more excited by what's on your phone than what's around you, this talk is for you. If your phone habits have defied your own sense of logic and reason, this talk is for you. If this talk is for you, you have become overpowered by your phone. You are addicted. So let me be the first to admit it. Hi, my name is Aviva, and I'm addicted to my smartphone. I remember the first time I got my smartphone. It was 2011. I was starting production on musical theater production I was part of. And I brought my phone to rehearsal, so excited, tapping it, swiping it, playing around with it. So much fun, right? The longer I used my smartphone in front of other people, the happier I felt. Instead of allowing experiences to happen to me, I could create my own. So I took the easy way out. Instead of working out, meditating, I used my phone to get dopamine. Dopamine is that chemical that's produced in the brain when we use our smartphones. We can just swipe and download and feel happy, connected, and productive. Not all sunshine and rainbows though. The longer I use my smartphone, the more I notice my behavior starting to change, including my relationships and things that I hold dear. Instead of calling friends to catch up, I just texted them. I mean, why bother? They could check my social media anyway if they wanted to find out what was up with me, right? Instead of talking with my spouse, I would just retreat into work emails because he was on his smartphone too. My relationships suffered as well as my freedom of relaxation. At night, I'd have to go up, I couldn't go upstairs to bed unless I checked my smartphone for emails. I can't even watch a movie sometimes because I have to be on my phone to make sure I don't miss something. Yes, my phone had become a problem and has become a problem. I'm here at TEDx to get help and to support you because you and I can't do this alone, right? Kids and teens are especially vulnerable. When I work with this population as a professor and coach, I hear so many times that smartphones are getting in the way of completing assignments and family bonding time, let alone parents' fears of what would happen when students might text behind the wheel. For a device that's designed to increase our productivity and focus, certainly has its limitations. It's not only my clients who have the problem. According to Pew Research Center, over half of teens believe that they're addicted to their smartphones and are abusing them. Young people's addiction to their smartphones has become a crisis. The greater the screen time, the greater the possibility that this population will have suicidal thoughts and depression. Young women are especially vulnerable, given the social pressure to be liked and to be pretty. I see with the teens I know, their Instagram feeds are filled with selfies and stories. They have hundreds, if not thousands of likes on the most routine posts. The pressure to be liked really feeds into and validates smartphone addiction. So what can we do to fix it? The first step is admitting that we have a problem. You can't help someone else until you help yourself. Together, we can stop normalizing smartphone use by putting our phones away unless we absolutely need to use them. Friend to friend, we can lovingly call each other out when we see someone on their smartphones when we're out. Colleague to colleague, we can see someone in a meeting using their phone and gently tell them to put it away. Parent to child, we can make a difficult choice to keep our teens off of social media. One of my clients, who's the most productive student I've ever known, is completely off social media. His parents forbid him from doing it. And he's created a valid patent for a device. He's a volunteer firefighter. And he started publications and clubs at school beyond what many, if not all, of my students have ever done. But putting smartphones and social media isn't always possible or desirable. If you can't create cold turkey, Common Sense Media recommends that you create a smartphone contract with your family or your friends so that you can hold each other accountable for your use and set some guidelines around that. You can also find a way to draw strength from the universe or from the religious beliefs. All of these solutions can help us to stay present and help us to overcome our smartphones. So if you're with me and you know you have a problem, and most of you looks like you do, let's join together and say the following 5 statements. We admit that we are not in control of our addiction to our smartphones. We recognize that we need a higher power to overcome this addiction. We promise to make amends to those we have hurt because of our addiction. We will learn to live our digital lives with new rules. We will help others who suffer from these same compulsions. Thank you. Let's make a commitment today and for the rest of our lives to overpower our phones and beat this addiction. Let's commit to building stronger relationships and living true to our priorities by being true to ourselves. If you're not beating this addiction for yourself, then do it for someone else. I'm going to come here for this guy who's going to be looking to me as a role model, especially as he gets older. If you're still with me, let's join together for a revolution to overpower our phones. And if you're a work in progress like I am, use the hashtag overpower my phone and tag me as you've to share your journey. What about you? Who are you getting healthy for today? Who will you impact by overcoming your addiction to your smartphone? Are you ready to power down so that you can up your power?
That was very nice.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So with that, there's so much great information that sparked so many ideas and
Riley.
conversations. I'm going to
Riley.
Oh, sorry, that's the music. The
Hi.
TEDx is still on. The YouTube is still on. Sorry about that. Oh, okay. So I am going to turn it over to Trisha to start opening up the dialogue with the questions. Trisha? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. I've seen Bubbly's talk many times. I haven't seen, is it Aviva or should we call you Dr. Legat? What's the best way to refer to you?
Oh, Aviva, you're on.
Sorry. Yeah, you can call me Aviva or Dr. Aviva or Dr. Leggett, whatever feels most comfortable for you.
Okay, thanks. Well, I just see all the Ivy League flags in the back of your of your office there, and I'm just curious as to smartphone addiction and kids that can get into Ivy League schools. Is there any sort of
Sure.
correlation?
Well, first
Negative
of all,
correlation?
sure. So first of all, let me say thanks to everyone for this event. Thank you, Cindy, for inviting me. Thank you, Trisha and Cindy, for organizing this. And thank you all for watching my TED Talk. I am very camera shy, so I actually couldn't watch my talk while you were watching it. So I tuned in at the last minute there. So, I think that it's, during this whole COVID year, we've really had to evaluate what we're willing to, pick our battles on, right, with our kids and what we're not, because the screen in a lot of ways has been a lot of our best friends. I think if we have little ones or even if we have older ones, it's our ability to connect, it's our ability to be entertained, it's our ability to escape. So I think in terms of when this talk occurred and now, I mean, obviously the landscape couldn't be any more different in terms of our social interactions, right? And so I do think that we can be mindful about smartphone use, but also recognize what an empowering tool it's been in this really, really challenging time. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a negative thing if your teen is using their smartphones, but I think that knowing a little or talking with them about how they're using it and the ways that they're engaging and having a dialogue about your usage as well, and how like your relationship with your phone is not a bad thing to do, whether we're in COVID or not, because a lot of us can be on our smartphones doing productive or enriching things, and others of us can be using them as a way to escape the world or go down a bad rabbit hole in the web. So it's I think talking to your kids about your use of your phone, their use of their phone, and just getting an understanding of like what is that relationship, because it's like a member of the family, right? Like it's not just like something we use like when we need it. Like we almost need it to live every day, especially now. So I think keeping that dialogue open is great. And then I don't know what I don't have a parent. I'm not a parent of a teen. I'm a parent of a 3-year-old. So I don't know what is sort of the norm for parents in your community as far as how you monitor your children's usage. But there are different apps on there that could tell you, what percentage of their time that they're spending on this app or that app. And there's some ways that I think parents can oversee their children's usage to an extent. So I think that that's also something that is important to think about and negotiate as it makes sense for your family and your community.
Lots of tips and tricks right now that we can use, right, to and then what about Bubbly? We have probably lots and lots of questions for her. I'm going to I'll unmute everyone if that's okay, so that we can open the dialogue, because I feel like and certainly feel free to ask a question in the chat as well. So I know with the other thing that Aviva mentioned, because the TED Talks were a couple of years ago, but Bubbly's also is so relevant right now with, the whole education system, I think, is transforming before our eyes. Certainly COVID has, been a big part of that, but maybe you want to speak to that, Bubbly?
In terms of how COVID has affected it?
Well, just how the education system is changing and transforming.
Yes. I think that basically for the last year, we have all really tried to step up and make sure that the education continues to be engaging for the children, even though they're missing the social component. It's really been a hard year for everyone, including the teachers. However, I think some children have really thrived with this kind of learning because they're not distracted, they are focused, they are in their own environment, they're comfortable, they can get up and go get a glass of water. You know, it's just being in a certain state of mind where you have nothing to shut your mind down. And some children have really thrived with it. But I think that, education is moving in the right direction, but I would say it's moving very slowly. Especially high school and under. I think that we are definitely raising our consciousness to what needs to be done and how we need to be innovative in terms of our curriculum, in terms of giving our children more agency and allowing them to be who they are and allowing them to express their opinions, even if it is dissenting. We're this is where we are going, but I don't think we're moving fast enough. So the best practices that have come to the fore now are very heartwarming, encouraging. We're thrilled that it's happening, but it's not happening in a universal manner all over. It's just happening in certain areas, in certain schools. And I just wish that it was moving quicker.
Ollie, can you talk about, what best practices that Turtle River uses, or do you want me to talk about? You should talk about it, and then I can talk about.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about it, because you have experienced it firsthand.
Well, with my kids, we have. I think the things that I've seen and why I've kept my kids in Montessori is the choice in their learning. I think that's something that, I've read education books because I find it fascinating since I've started at Turtle River. But choice in learning, I think, really helps kids engage more and deeper in what they're learning. So there's a lot of choice in a Montessori school, at least in ours. The kids get to choose what and how, not everything, but within the context of what they're learning. So as an example, like Cindy and my son are in the same class and they were studying the Revolutionary War, and they got to choose which historical figure they wanted to study. And then they had to write a memoir from that person's point of view and then present it as a monologue. So that's, a lot of, they're not given a historical figure to they get to choose somebody that they find interesting. So I think choice definitely has something to do with engaged, deeper learning. And I think that I found so fascinating about Turtle River from the start was just how I took my oldest, who was kind of exuberant, was the word that everybody used to talk to about him. He happened to be difficult to wrangle when he was a little guy, the one who's going to college. But he, when we were touring preschools, we went into one preschool with he and his little baby brother, and he ended up like hitting his brother in front of the people we were touring the school with. I was so embarrassed. And so we went to Turtle River. Everything was so calm, and Bubbly was there, and I was just it just completely calmed him. So the calm environment and the fact that the kids in those little preschool classes are so self-directed at such an early age, I was shocked at the classroom itself and how it just independently ran itself, and everybody had the little mat, the little lesson, and they walked around and they did everything. And just those couple things, the self-directedness for sure has helped my kids. Because they have to, as you get older, that's one of those 21st century skills, they say that a lot of millennials are missing, right, when they leave college and get jobs now, to be self-directed and curious learners is something that definitely comes naturally out of a Montessori school. But those are the kind of things that I think the integrated curriculum that we see in the upper L and in the middle school is something that I've read in articles, is something that a lot of schools are trying to do, even in very high institutions like grad school and in college. They're trying to remove those silos of the independent classes and try to integrate between curriculum between different types of study so that different classes are integrated with each other. Like, our kids learn their reading and writing, a lot of it through their integrated studies class, which is history and English language arts. So when the curriculum is integrated, it's more rigorous, and I think it's more interesting for them, but it's more real life. Like things aren't necessarily, when you're in working in the business world, you're not only doing one thing, you're wearing a lot of different hats. So being integrated, I think the curriculum sort of forces kids to have higher level critical thinking skills, and that's just another benefit I've seen with my kiddos who've gone through the school already.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I would completely agree with that. And I think that one of the beauties of Turtle River is that it really does prepare kids for the future, even though you don't even know it's happening. So it's so organic. And the other thing that I found is that, the teachers, they, because of the structure, I guess, of the school, but it's also a testament to the school. The teachers know so many things about your children. I remember when Olivia was in pre-K, they would tell me things about her that I could not even believe that they knew about her. And the same thing with Trevor, he's in 6th grade now. And I just feel like they're so intuitive and in tune with the students, which is such a beautiful thing. And I think, now that I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, I think that, and maybe we can segue over to Aviva and Bubbly to comment on this, but just how, I've learned, preparing, you think college and high school is so way off when your children are in preschool, and it goes so fast. I know it sounds cliche, but that's the thing that I felt like we didn't really have to prepare. I mean, now obviously we're preparing for college, even though Olivia is a sophomore, but thinking about those things. But there's just, and again, this is Aviva's expertise as well, just getting ready for college. But I think there's so much to be said for that organic preparation that happens, and I've seen it happen at Turtle River. And the other thing I just want to point out, and I've said this before, so forgive me if you've heard it, but just through the TEDx, we've had my counterpart is a MIT graduate. He's has his MBA from MIT, and so many of our speakers, we've been really fortunate to have some from Facebook and NASA and MIT graduates, and so many of these speakers, their children are Montessori students. And I think it just speaks volumes to the culture and the education. So I'll turn that over to you, Bubbly, and then hopefully Aviva can share some insights.
Yeah, I just think that, the most important thing that we all need to be mindful of is, creating environments where the children are being given the soft skills, and where they are, becoming, they're learning how to discover who they are, and, become self-aware, so that, and that's the beginning of any kind of growth. And once you can get them on that path, I think they just come into themselves, and they kind of move in a direction where they create their own trajectories, because you have given them an environment where they are feeling respected, they're feeling nurtured, they are feeling that their opinions have value, and their thoughts have merit, and they're getting all of this, and feeling like they are their own person, and they're comfortable in their skins. So that's the one thing that I think that we are all, that is an endeavor that I think most educational environments are trying to create. As far as, I'm also thinking, remember at the graduation speech, I talked a lot about our digital addictions. And I really, actually, I feel bad for these children that, think about it, we were raised in a completely different world. In this little short span of time, we have created a world of such addiction that it's like telling them to put gum in their mouth and not chew it.
Mm.
It's just impossible. And how are we going to take them away from it? And I think the only way to take them away from it is to engage them in life and in learning and in interaction, and discover the joy that comes from all of that. And that's the only way you're going to be able to take them away from the addiction, because it's just simply addicting, even for adults. What do you think, Aviva? I think you're mute.
Unmute, Aviva, sorry.
Are you muted?
Oh, sorry, hold on, let me unmute her. I don't know why for some reason it says asked to unmute. I think
Sorry, I Cindy's in charge of my microphone, so yeah. So I think a lot's been covered here, and I guess what's striking me is sort of that, like, the tension between technology overload and technology facilitation, because I think for different kinds of learners, as you mentioned, this has been actually a very helpful way for them to focus, to concentrate, to really engage in things in a more comfortable way. But then obviously it can go the wrong way, right? It can get too far. And so I loved also hearing a little bit more about your school and what it prioritizes and the kind of environment it strives to create, because that's exactly the kind of environment that sounds like allows young people to thrive. And my book, Get Real and Get In, is all about college, but really it's about helping young people figure out who they are and what they want on the way to college, but not just to get into a specific college. So this is based in my own experience as a college applicant. When I was a youngster, I was very focused and motivated, but I didn't have a lot of guidance. So I ended up getting really stressed out about the process. I got pneumonia on the way to doing it. And it really transformed the way my life has gone, because while I got into my top choice college, which is all well and good, what really stuck with me was that experience of going through that process and figuring out what I wanted and how I had to get there. And so that stayed with me on my shoulder throughout college and ultimately led me to do what I'm doing now. So I think, the challenges that smartphones and other technological devices provide, they're all learning opportunities for students and opportunities for them to build relationships with mentors, with peers, and also opportunities, I think, for parents and children to cross generational divides, because we are all somewhat addicted to our devices or our technologies, and they do suck us in even when we would prefer that they don't. So there's a lot of, I think, great threads to unpack here. So I'll just stop there and see if there's anything you want to pick up on.
Eva, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Since it sounds like your focus of your practice is getting kids into Ivy League schools, maybe it's not, but what would you say are some of the things like that these kinds of colleges, these top colleges are looking for? What is there anything that we talked about, that Turtle River's trying to do with regard to their best practices that is aligned with what these colleges are looking for?
Mm-hmm.
That's I think, because it's not like, for a lot of kids, they're looking to pad their applications when they get to high school. But is there something, that we're sort of instilling in our children at a very young age, so it becomes woven into the thread of who they become? Because what Bubbly talked about, giving the kids to feel free in this environment to become who they are. Like, I have kids that are so different, Cindy too, that they're motivated, but they're curious, interested learners, and they, I think, have been free enough to find their own path and for whatever it is that they're interested in, because the environment's so supportive and loving that they could feel comfortable being whoever it is that they are, and then pursue that with crazy passion. once they figure out what it is. My
Mhm.
oldest is going to college next year, and he's definitely an interesting kid, and it's just fascinating to watch his trajectory and where he's going, and what he's planning to do as a result of all his time at Turtle River. And he's been to 2 different high schools, but really he credits who he is today back to Turtle River, and his regular meetings with Miss Bubbly in her office to talk about projects he wanted to work on. And
That's
yeah.
great. Well, it sounds like the philosophy of Turtle River is very well aligned. So the framework that I like to give students and families who are thinking about, how should I be spending my time? How should I be prioritizing? Really, outside of class, it comes down to the things that you were just mentioning. So the 3 aspects that I like to call your college admissions X factor are experience, expertise, and exponentialism. So experience is really about what is that exposure to those field or to a field or fields of interest that could entice the student to learn a little bit more about what they want to study or something they want to get a little bit deeper into. Expertise, that's when a student would start to focus as they progress through their studies and really develop some specialized knowledge around some subject areas. It doesn't have to necessarily be academics, but something that they're really passionate about and strong in. And then finally, exponentialism. That's when a student would take their knowledge and their experiences that they've developed and progress it to a way that they can give those back to their community in some way, whether that's your school community at Turtle River, the broader South Florida area. I'm sorry, I don't know if that's what you call it, the Boca area, or something even larger than that. So ultimately, what colleges are looking for are students who are making an impact, and that's the exponentialism. So the experience and expertise, helpful foundational, and then to take that to the next level towards the top tier, you want to go for that exponentialism and for that meaningful impact that impacts not only the student but many others around that person. So it sounds like Turtle River is creating a great environment where people can figure out, well, what is it exactly that sparks my curiosity and how do I want to spend my time? I also think there's a challenge when you are going for a top tier college that's highly selective of a lot of people fall into this trap of like a checkbox mentality of like, oh, I need this certain number of hours, or I have to do this club and I have to take the test here or there. And they get so involved in the tactics that they fail to think about why they're doing what they're doing. So that's something that's really important that I think it sounds like you're instilling in the young people, to give them that chance to find that intrinsic motivation and find out what makes them tick as they move forward. I mean, ultimately, it's that authenticity that will propel them above other applicants. So it may sound counterintuitive to some because people think they have to meet certain milestones. And to that extent, that's true, because obviously you have to have a certain level of qualifications. But beyond that, to differentiate yourself, you have to be authentic and you have to be different from other people. And the only way to do that is by actually staying true to who you are and pursuing activities and endeavors that make sense with that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that we spend so much time putting them rather in a box, and then we expect them to get out and then start immediately thinking out of the box when they're ready to go to college.
Right.
It's just not fair. I mean, it is our responsibility to not put them in a box from the get-go, so that they are authentic, that they are confident in who they are, and they are they celebrate their own gifts, they understand their own challenges, and that authenticity is what gets them moving in life. And that's a very attractive trait to have in life. And imagine if you can start inculcating that as a young student, a young child. Imagine the charisma and the attraction of somebody who's completely authentic. I think that's what gets you somewhere in life.
Absolutely. I love that. And I would also say, building on that, finding those places where you can connect in with your future self and those goals. So how can you connect in with, if you want to go into I know you switched over to humanities, Bubbly. So, if you wanted to go into that, who might you talk to? What are some professors that are working in areas that you're interested in? So there are little tactics that students can do that help them with college, that also just help them with their life and their own personal development. And so many people lose track of that's what this college admissions process is really about. And they just make it like a box checking, stress inducing exercise, which I'm not saying it's not. There are a lot of hurdles that you have to jump through, but it's more than that. And it's important not to lose sight of that bigger picture.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think that
It comes faster than you realize for your kids. Hang on, Aviva. Your son's only 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably get him advice from somebody else. So
where's Arthur going to college, Trish?
He's still waiting to hear back from Georgetown and Yale, but he got early accepted to University of Chicago.
Oh, congrats. That's wonderful.
That's fabulous.
Oh, thanks.
Amazing. It's amazing. And that's
Thanks.
the beauty, I think, also of Turtle River is that, there's different, well, I mean, Arthur obviously is amazing, and obviously Bubbly too, your daughters. But I think the beauty of Turtle River too is that any learning style, there's different kids learn in different ways. And it really, I know with my 2 children, my daughter is very I would say book smart, a different learner than my son, and he's incredibly smart as well, but in a completely different way. So, and it's funny because I know as a parent, you sort of rack your brain, are you doing the right thing? Especially with school, you don't know, if you're making the right decision. And I did have exposure to Montessori school just from kids that I babysat for that were going to Montessori, and I always loved the culture. But then when my son was born, I thought, I wonder if it's going to be a fit for him too. And that's the beauty that I found, that it really can be a fit for different learning styles.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, the fact that Olivia started a little business at such a young age.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how old was she when she started it? I was amazed at how beautifully she actually packaged the whole thing, and she really made it into a legit business.
She's motivated to do things like that. It's cute. I think she was 11 when she started her little soaps, and she started making, glycerin and salt scrubs, sugar scrubs, and things like that. She likes that. And the whole generation now is a YouTube generation, so you could learn so much about, those types of things. And I think Turtle River just encouraged that too, that entrepreneurial spirit, which is something you focus on a lot at Turtle River as well.
Right. Remember, we actually founded a corporation called Pioneer Kids for our children who were, doing a business together or raising money to donate to charities. And it was a wonderful thing for the children to do, understanding how business works and, how do you, what do you do with the money? How do you use it for initiatives, or you give it to charities, and just the collaboration of working together. It's the most wonderful thing we can give them, an opportunity to collaborate, because when you see people in the work areas as adults, how many people find it very difficult to work in a collaborative environment because they just haven't had that experience. They worked in silos, and they have not had the opportunity to really understand how collaboration works. That, it's not just their way or the highway. And when you run a little business in a group of 30 kids, they get to learn,
They do.
They do get to learn that. And it's just a beautiful thing to witness and to see, how everybody's talent comes out, and how some kids, know what their place is in that whole organization, and everybody's talents are being appreciated, and there's a leader who takes over, and it's just a great way to mimic life as an adult.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree. I was in a Clubhouse group this morning, that new app that so many people are on, and there was a conversation. It was an entrepreneur group, and everyone was talking about, how schools are lacking in that sort of entrepreneurship and financial literacy. It's such a gap, I think, that, and it's funny because it just keeps coming up again and again. I keep hearing it, and it's a beautiful thing that Turtle River does it. I was talking with a group with junior achievement, and that's one of the things that they focus on with the kids. That's a global organization, but it's a nonprofit, and it's something that's outside of school. So it's unfortunate that that's not something that is foundational in most schools. So hopefully we'll see more of it. Oops.
Is somebody unmuted and trying to say something?
I was just going to say, if anybody has questions, you can put questions in the chat, because I did invite people to unmute, but most people are not unmuted. So feel free to ask a question in the chat if you have any questions. We are recording this, so the beauty of the recording is that we will be able to share it with the Turtle River families. And how many families are there at Turtle River now?
Well, we have about 250 students. I would say a good 210 or 20 families.
Yeah, so I just think it's such valuable information that we're sharing. You, Bubbly, of course, and Aviva as well, because I do think it's important for people to realize. I mean, it's like a journey, obviously, as a parent, and there's no handbook, and you realize as the children get older that, they're getting so much of what they need in those foundational years if it's nurtured.
Yep.
I can speak to that also.
Please jump in. Hi.
Hi. So I'm Sarah Medina. I'm a teacher at Turtle River, have been for years, but I also have two sons there. My older son is approaching the middle school age, and I'm finding myself in more conversations with my peers, not just at Turtle River, but in my neighborhood and community. What are you thinking for middle school? They should be in a bigger environment. Don't they want sports and a cafeteria and all those things? And it's just so funny how even my generation and those above me still have this idea about school and what it should look like. And speaking to Bubbly's talk about innovation, like we're stuck in that, not thinking beyond, like, does school have to be that way? Was it really that great? Personally, I didn't enjoy huge setting. It wasn't that great. And I just say, my kids are thriving. They love school. And the bottom line is, when they're in a loving environment where they're allowed to question, they're allowed to, dive deeper into a subject that interests them, they come out confident. And I think, especially now, the way the world is, there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of noise, and confidence is everything. I think. So if they can come out of school confident, then the world is theirs, and they won't be afraid, because a lot of us are just, even, I'm afraid of a lot of things. I just think it was instilled in me growing up, like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't question this. And so you're afraid to speak up or take risks. And I've been at Turtle River for years. I've seen so many kids go through the process. They all come out confident, and they're all different, very different. But that's, to me, the most important and most valuable piece that the school gives to each child. So that's my piece.
I have to share something very interesting with you. My two girls were 6 years apart. So when the younger one joined the same high school where the older one was, The older one was gone. And they both have very different personalities and very different ways of, doing things. And one is an extrovert, one is clearly an introvert. And they both ended up becoming SGA presidents at their high schools. And it was amazing to see how each of them had their own talents, their own way, and their own approach to how they would, handle leadership. But they were both so comfortable in their skins and so authentic and confident and knew who they were, that that's what got them into these leadership roles. So really it doesn't matter what, how different you can be, but the fact that you create little leaders this way, by giving them that gift of believing in themselves, and making them see that they are unique and that they have so much to bring to the table. Once they start believing it, you've created leaders, you know and that's, I think, what that's what we have seen in our children, is the leadership. And that comes from believing in yourself and being authentic.
Yep.
Mhm.
I agree. I totally agree. I was going to ask Aviva, can you give us a little flavor of, as a parent, like when a parent comes to you, like what does it look like? What do you recommend? Maybe you can give us a little flavor. I know you already have, but how do you work with parents?
Great. Well, thank you for that opportunity, Cindy. So essentially, usually it is the parent, not the student, who comes to us to ask for help. And what we do is we get on a call and we find out a little bit more about what the questions and concerns are about college. A lot of the reason why someone may want to hire a college consultant has to do with saving time, saving money, or saving their relationship. So we try to figure out what are the challenges that these families are facing, and we look at the whole family. So really we focus on two things. For the students, we focus on helping them to develop as high potential leaders, and for the family, we focus on helping them to be supported and to thrive alongside their children, because really the college process is a whole family affair, and parents are going to have different ways they like to be involved, ways that may be more helpful to be involved, ways that may be less helpful to be involved. So we really aim to support the entire family. So we get a sense of what that family situation is like. Then we get on a call with the student and the parent to see how the student likes working with us and give some initial recommendations. And then we give the family a proposal for here's how we think we can help and what we think some of the growth areas are. And then we decide if it makes sense to move forward at that point. So really, ahead of even starting to work, we engage in getting to know you process to make sure that we can really be the best fit for the family, and that the family is the best fit for us so that we can really help them along their way. Most of our students and families are seeking admission to the top tier colleges. So having a focus on that leadership piece is really important, as I mentioned with the X Factor framework I shared earlier. And so we want to help each student to be mentored and to thrive in whatever setting that they may be studying in, or whatever circumstances they may have at this time, so they can really develop themselves as people, and that helps them to become the best possible college applicants. So we'll work with students from between grades 9 and 12 generally. And if anyone on the call is interested or thinks this sounds interesting, I'm going to invite you to send me a note afterwards. aviva@avivaleggett.com is easy to
Awesome.
remember, I hope.
You have a podcast too.
I do.
Yeah, I wanted to share that as well.
Oh, thanks. It's called College Admissions Real Talk. So basically I get on there every day and I give a little tip, or I talk about something in the news in college admissions that I think students and families should know about. And the podcast is a little bit, I think parents are probably listening to it a little bit more than students, but I really try to make it digestible for the students. I only make it 5 to 10 minutes a day, and it has cool background music music, which I did not produce. I have a great producer who puts that on for me to make it a little bit more exciting for young people. So if you're looking for cool-ish podcasts to share with your kids, mine is not bad. I actually enjoy listening to my own podcast, partially because of the music that's behind it, which I helped to pick. And yeah, so I love helping people through my podcast. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me to, ask a question or just express appreciation. And so I think there's probably an episode on there for everybody, just because I cover a lot of topics, and I'm going to continue to cover topics throughout the year. I also write for Forbes. So there's an article if you're interested in college admissions. I wrote an article early this year on the trends for 2021. That's like kind of a good primer for what's coming up and what you can expect this year. So if you if you go to avivaforbes.com, you can just get a shortcut to my page and see all my most recent articles there. So I aim to be of service to anyone who may need help in this process. So that's why I love creating content and engaging with the broader community, and appreciate opportunities like this to talk with a community. So thank you again.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, I think, and again, it sounds cliche, but I feel like, we've sort of hit on the fact that, it's important to start early. And I know we have parents, obviously, from preschool through middle school at Turtle River. So, and that's one of the beautiful things that I love about it is I do think, and I look back and I think about my education, which I think was fine, but I know from a confidence standpoint, I mean, these kids, every year I go to the graduation ceremonies and I cry, and I'm impressed and blown away by just some of the things that they come up, and each of them presents and talks, and it's just the speaking ability it's incredible. It really is. And it's not that they're trained, it's just becomes innate because they're in this environment that nurtures that. So I think it's a beautiful thing. And by the way, I mean, today it's more important than ever, obviously, to communicate and feel comfortable on video and camera. And we're in a completely different world too. So that's another advantage for these kids.
Definitely. And audio is huge right now. I know, Cindy, you just mentioned Clubhouse. I am aiming to get in there more. I'm finding the podcast is a really nice way to connect with people, because I think people are just so sick of being on video that they just preferring audio right now. So
I love it. And you can also, like, when you're driving, the podcast, you can listen, and Clubhouse, you can listen when you're driving. And I drive a lot, so I feel like it's great. And you don't have to be camera ready.
exactly. And if anyone wants to connect with me on Clubhouse, I'll just type in my my handle here. Just made College Insight. So if you look up the word college, I should be one of the first people that comes up.
Awesome. Thank you. So Trisha, do you want to share a little? I mean, I know each of your kids has completely different learning styles. So maybe you can just share a little about your journey, and then we'll ask Bubbly to share.
Well, I mean, I have 4 boys, but you'd never know they're from the same family. They're just really different. Arthur was, the oldest, and blazing the trail for the rest of them. And he, tried to get into early acceptance to Georgetown and Chicago, and got into Chicago. But really, like, I think it comes down to, you said those kids at graduation were great speakers. It's because they're confident and they know who they are. And that's what really shone through. And that's why we kept our kids there for so long, because that's kind of a gift. A lot of us grew up, pleasing people, or becoming different versions of ourselves, and ended up finding ourselves later in life. But these kids are so confident, and they're happy. That's what's so great. I mean, Sarah said it, her little kiddos are happy to go to school, they're sad to miss school. So that really has something to do with building the type of character and the resilience, and just learning and curiosity. I think learning isn't about school, it's about life. And that's what my oldest really, he didn't care about grades till he got to high school at all. So anybody who has little kiddos and they're worried about, grades or reading, it doesn't matter when they're little. He got to high school and realized that grades were important, but what was interesting is that he did care about a lot of stuff. I think, I don't know, Bubbly, how old was he when he insisted that the whole school watch the documentary on the dying bee population? Like, it was like in third grade. Like, he cared about a lot of stuff. He just didn't care about having to prove to people how smart he was, because, grades were just part of the system and he didn't think they were that important, but they were. He got into University of Chicago, which is a really, it's a top 10 school. So we were all thrilled, and he was too. So we were excited. But then my second son is just like he was Olivia's age, just like Olivia, book smart. They're both very similar. They're both very book smart. And my boys are athletes too. So this kid, the second kiddo, might be playing football in college. And then I have two little ones. And my youngest has learning differences, and, so he struggles in some areas in school. But, the teachers are amazing, and the environment is so loving that he, you wouldn't know, at a traditional school, he might feel like he's really, sticking out and not as smart as everybody else. But at Turtle River, we don't focus on his weaknesses. We focus on his strengths and tend to his weaknesses. So all mine have been really, really different. But it's been a perfect environment for all of them for different reasons, So, was there anything else you wanted me to talk about?
No,
There's a question on the chat from much more, Cindy. It says, question for Trish or Miss Bubbly, can you speak to the transition from Montessori to traditional education in high school? I can start, sure. So two of mine, Sylvie, have graduated and gone to different high schools. They're different high schools. My Arthur was looking for a really strong basketball sports school and a really strong academic school. And when the sports program at his high school locally fell apart, he decided to go to a school down in Boca, a high school that's very prep school oriented. It had an international baccalaureate program and AP classes. And so he sleeps there during the week, boards there, and then comes home on weekends. And so for him, that there was the transition was nothing. I mean, it's funny. I mean, just for me personally, for people, I know it's a thing, people, and I worried about it too. What's the transition going to be like? My mom's a teacher. She was a teacher in Chicago for 50 years for the Chicago Board of Education. And how are they going to transition? What's it going to be like when they get to the real world? Remember, Bubbly? Used to drive me crazy. What's going to happen when they move to the real world? It's well, what happens when they move to the real world? They're kind, loving, confident, self-aware people, and they can handle the real world garbage that's out there, especially when they have to go to high school and all the stuff that as parents were afraid of, that we were exposed to. And it's way worse now. It's when these kids are confident and they know who they are, they don't care what's happening in the back of the bus. It doesn't matter, because they're focused on their own stuff. It's not important to them. So with regard to the social emotional health, Sylvie, 150 million times more prepared, I think, than I could have ever expected. With regard to the academic side, completely 100% prepared. Both my two older ones. And my second son, I think he's a Jupiter Christian, and he's in really, really, really hard classes. They take a placement exam there, and he just transitioned perfectly. And thank you, honey. There's Arthur, my oldest, telling me he made dinner for us. It's ready. It's cooking while I'm on my call. But yeah, the transition academically and socially has been amazing from such a small environment to a much bigger environment. Granted, they're not at, like a Dwyer that has thousands and thousands of kids. They're at a high school that has hundreds and hundreds of kids. I don't know how big Dreyfus is, Cindy, but socially and academically, my two older ones were perfectly fine. I couldn't have expected anything more. How about you, Cindy?
I feel the same way. Obviously it's, as a parent, you have to sort of take a leap of faith with these types of things. And, but I felt as I went along, I felt the decision for us was reinforced, and I felt so good about it. Yeah, so Olivia is in Dreyfus in West Palm Middle School. I'm sorry, high school, excuse me. And yeah, she's flourishing. Same thing. She's just, doing really well. She's very self-motivated, self-disciplined. I don't have to even check on her teachers, love her and reach out to me all the time. It's just a beautiful thing. I feel really incredibly blessed. And I also think just, as a busy mom, which all moms are busy, I think that's a beautiful thing too. I always felt incredibly fortunate with Turtle River because it's a community, not just a school, and so I could lean on, like tonight is an example. Trisha has Trevor, I was working late and was able to, grab him. So anyway, those types of things that when you have a community of families that you can really lean on, I mean, it's priceless besides the education, of course.
I also want to tell you that despite the fact that I own the school and it was my school and my girls were in this school, I was extremely nervous when they went to high school myself, because I wondered how they would fare and how the whole thing would pan out. But I was very happily surprised that, it took them a couple of months to adjust to, the big environment, the number of kids and, the variety of kids. But, they got on their feet pretty quickly. And I felt that they were able to handle it beautifully because, again, they knew who they were. And in fact, other students would be drawn to them to ask for their advice, or you could tell that there's something about the kids who come out of these kind of educational environments that teachers even tell us that we can tell from a distance these kids are from a different kind of environment because of the way they conduct themselves. So yes, I was extremely nervous about the transition myself, but I'm very happy to tell you that both my girls did beautifully in high school. It took them a little while to, sort of which is natural. You go from one job to another. It takes you a couple months to integrate and become part of that culture. But other than that, they thrived as high school students. They did really well.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So maybe Aviva, you can share. I know you said you start working with just even from your own personal experience with a 3-year-old, how how just to some of the parents, because again, we're recording this and we have the parents that are here. How are you as a parent of a 3-year-old preparing your child for the future?
Well, thank you for that question. And we're in the thick of this right now. And like you, Trish, my son has learning differences as well. So a big part of our preparation is understanding his learning differences right now and getting him the right supports as he moves forward so that he can maximize his opportunities and be the best version of himself possible. So that's how we're preparing at this point. That's what we're focused on, just trying to get him the support that he needs. He just turned 3 recently, so he's recently just qualified for in-school support. So we are currently navigating the whole landscape of what that should look like. So I think arming ourselves with the knowledge of what he needs and seeing how he responds to the things that we're giving him is really the best preparation we could have for our future when we are in this college process, which, I'm sure comes upon everybody really, really quickly, a lot more quickly than we think. But for me, it feels very far away still for my own son. But, it just feels like we continue to grow and learn as parents and to help our son. And I feel like that's the best we can do as parents, continue to get to know our kids, find ways to meet them where they are and help them become the best versions of themselves.
That's awesome. Well, I'm just thinking, like, for the parents that have toddlers, I'm sure they would, that's why the reason I asked the question, I'm sure they'd love to pick your brain about that because of your experience and what you do, so you have that vantage point and
Yes. And I have to point out this really cool book that I got recently. So hold on, it's just right here. If anyone has or has a child with learning differences, there's this really great guide that just came out. It's in its 15th edition. We just had a college admissions virtual summit yesterday that I produced, and Mary Beth Kravitz was one of the speakers there, and this is her guide, and it's published by the Princeton Review. And essentially, this is the guide that helps you see what are the kind of support sources available for your children. And even if you have a child that doesn't have learning differences, the lessons from this guide are applicable because you need to know what resources your children are going to be accessing in college, whether they're for learning differences, for cultural centers, different academic or other religious interests that they may have. Help your child figure out who they're going to be on those campuses in the future. So having guides around like this one is a really great way to, if you have a child earlier on in high school or in middle school, just to know a little bit about the landscape and what some of the variations are. It never hurts to, just learn for yourself what's out there before you have to, it's your child's in 11th grade and you're like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to be learning this like 2-3 years ago and I didn't even do anything. So I'd say don't have that regret. If you have a child that's early on in high school, definitely take the time while you have it to educate yourself about the landscape for colleges and the costs and all the things that might concern you and or your child as they move forward.
Aviva, what was the name of that book?
It's called The K&W Guide to Colleges for Students with Learning Differences. I'm holding it up here. And it's in its 15th edition. It's been published since the 90s. So they keep updating it with new information. And if you have a child with learning differences,
Aviva, put that up there. I'm going to take a photo.
It's a very long, it's a long name. So
thank you.
Yeah, with this also, if you have a child with learning differences, call up the Office of Disability Services at these colleges to understand, what the accommodations are and what the availability is and the type of self-advocacy that your children will have to do, because it's a different landscape, like, with the services being mandated K-12 and even before that versus in college where you have to do more for yourself. So that's a really important part for any parent who has child with learning differences to really understand like what can be accommodated and also how to tell your story around that too when you're applying to college. So that's actually an area I'm excited to learn more about and grow in because I have a son with learning differences. So now I'm just so much more aware of this whole world that I never knew before. So I'm really excited to dive into it. And I feel like we're doing right by our son by educating ourselves.
Yeah. There's a whole movement from Sir Richard Branson, you know who he is? Aviva?
Yeah.
Yeah. He started this movement called Made by Dyslexia. I don't know what kind of learning differences you're dealing with, but where it really, he had dyslexia and he credits dyslexia for his creative, innovative brain. And so he's trying to spread the word about how these kiddos are learned differently. It's not a disadvantage. It's actually an advantage in many ways, which is super cool.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'll definitely have to check it out. And I agree. I think, it's a very odd thing when you have a child with learning differences, you have to qualify it as a disability, but it may or may not be depending on what the nature of the difference is and what setting the child is in. So that's it's an odd thing because you have to talk about your kid like they're sick to get them something, but they're not necessarily, there's nothing wrong with them necessarily, right? But you have to navigate the system to help them, right?
Yeah, they're just differently abled. And my oldest, had them in 3rd grade. He was diagnosed with learning differences too. And he kind of outgrew them, but had to learn how to advocate for himself and deal with it when he was in class. So so don't be afraid.
Definitely.
Need support him here.
Very cool.
Well, I know we're coming up on 7:30, so I just wanted for the last few minutes, maybe Bubbly, for those people who are not Turtle River parents and even those who are Turtle River parents, maybe you can share, how they can reach out, get a tour, anything like that. And then we'll close with Aviva again, just giving us information on how to reach you if you could in closing.
Yeah, due to COVID, we're not doing any personal tours, in-person tours. So, but we're doing virtual tours, and I think that we've got it down to a science by now. We've got great videos. We've also got, aerial video of the school. We'll show you the classrooms, and Miss Lisa, who's the director at the West Campus, which has just the elementary through middle school, is always available. You could call the phone number 745-1995 and set up a time to have a virtual tour. And then we have the East Campus, where we have 18 months through 5-year-olds. And Miss Alyssa, who is the director there, is also just become such a pro at these virtual tours. And it's amazing, people are getting a lot out of it. I'm really very impressed by how they've made it happen. And so that's what you do. You call the number and you set up an appointment just the way you would if you were doing an in-person tour, and you will have a good 45-minute tour. And she will talk about they both talk about the philosophy, they answer your questions, and
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Can I just say that
Yeah.
on the website, Cindy, for people who want to learn more about Turtle River, if they go to turtlerivermontessori.com, there's a beautiful video on there that talks about the philosophy that you really everybody should see. If you haven't seen it, even if you are a Turtle River parent, you should see it. And then there are some videos, I think at the bottom of the page, that talk about the curriculum at the different levels, the middle school curriculum, and then the upper elementary curriculum, and then the lower elementary. I think for all levels, it was a Zoom call that was done to discuss the curriculum for all the different levels of grades. So that's on the homepage too. So if you want to know, when Arthur was like in, 3rd grade, I was going to the middle school parent education nights. I just wanted to know, what does his trajectory look like while we're here? And I was curious as to what they were doing in the older classroom. So if you're immediately under, you can look at the next one, or you can just look ahead if you want. Listen as you're cooking dinner, whatever it is. But those are on the homepage as well, those videos, the curriculum videos.
We record our parent education nights sometimes and put them on our website, so that you get a good sense of what our programs look like.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I was going to direct them there, so I'm glad that you did, Trisha. I just want to point out the video for those parents and those who are not Turtle River parents who have not seen it. The documentary on the homepage, turtlerivermontessori.com, is so beautifully done, and it just gives you a little taste of the culture that is at Turtle River. It's just incredible. And also, if you scroll down on the homepage, exactly what Trisha was saying, those different parent education nights are available as well. One thing I did want to say, with COVID, and hopefully things will be getting better soon so we can open up the schools again for the in-person tours. But one thing I remember, and I will never forget, when I went with my mom when Olivia was 2 to take a tour of Turtle River. And and again, it wasn't even at the new school, it was the old school. The building was completely different than what it is now, but the culture, the children, the way that they greeted one another, and I'm talking toddlers, little children, they approached Miss Bubbly, hugged her, at the time it was Lainey who was giving the tours. And my mom and I remember we walked out of the school, and obviously we spent some time chatting with Miss Bubbly as well. We spent about an hour, and she said, I feel like I'm going to cry now, but she said, you have to send Olivia to the school. It was just amazing. And just the impression that it left on me too. So even though I'm sure the virtual tours are amazing, hopefully we'll get back to the live tours, because the interaction of the children as well that you see during those moments is really incredible. So with that, I'm going to ask Aviva to just again repeat, if for those people, how to reach her, and again your podcast, so people can. I've listened to your podcast a few times, and I love because you get a flavor of people too, and their personality and their background, so that people can get to know you before they actually reach out to you. So
Absolutely. So I dropped my email in the chat. I'll just drop my podcast link really quick here. This is on Apple, but you could find it on Spotify. You could find it on YouTube, iHeartRadio. So wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can probably find it. I love connecting with people over my podcast. If you have a question, I do take them. I have a phone number for questions. It's 610-222-5762. So if you have a question, you can just text it there. No obligation to have an actual conversation with me. If you just want to ask me kind of an anonymous question, I may have a moment to answer it on my podcast. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and happy to be of service in the future to your school going forward. Well, actually, let me drop in one more link, which is the link to my book, which is Get Real and Get In. So I'd love for you to check out the book. Very excited about it. It's launching in August with St. Martin's Press. So if you're interested in just reading a book or giving a book to your kids, the book is really targeted towards kids more in terms of the language, but I'm sure a lot of parents will be reading it as well. So thank you again.
It's out now.
It's out in August. This is an advanced reader
okay,
copy.
okay.
This is not the not the final book, but this is roughly what it will look like when it comes out in August.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, we'll have to do this again for sure, because I feel like there's probably a lot of questions that parents that were not able to attend will have in the future. So we'll have to group, and just thank you so much, Aviva and Bubbly. This was just a beautiful evening. And Trisha, any closing words?
No, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, everybody. Nice meeting you. Nice chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.